8 ancient texts that shatter the official biblical timeline. In 1896, in a dusty storeroom in Cairo, the father of modern archaeology unrolled a granite slab and found the oldest reference to Israel that exists anywhere on Earth. It wasn't in a Bible. It wasn't in a synagogue. It was carved into an Egyptian victory monument, boasting that Israel's seed is not. In other words, the first time history ever wrote the word Israel down, it was declaring the nation already dead, and the timeline doesn't add up. This is Excavating Eden, where we dig through the manuscripts, excavation reports, and inscriptions that mainstream religion and mainstream academia would both rather you not cross-reference. Tonight, 8 documents that don't fit the official story, and they were never lost. They were just never asked the right question. 8. The Merneptah stele, Cairo Museum, storeroom, 1896. Flinders Petrie, the man who essentially invented scientific excavation methodology in Egypt, uncovers a 10-foot granite stele commissioned by Pharaoh Merneptah around 1208 BCE. Carved into it, among a list of conquered peoples, is a single hieroglyphic determinative marking Israel as a people, not a place. This is the earliest non-biblical mention of Israel in existence, full stop. The problem? Merneptah describes Israel already established in Canaan and militarily defeated, while the biblical Exodus and conquest narratives place Israel still enslaved in Egypt or just arriving. Either the Exodus happened far earlier than tradition holds, or Israel emerged in Canaan without ever leaving it. Petrie's slab doesn't confirm the story. It confirms the people, and complicates everything about how they got there. 7. The Ketef Hinnom Silver Scrolls, 1979. A burial cave in Jerusalem's Hinnom Valley, excavated by Gabriel Barkay and a team that famously included a 13-year-old assistant who found the crack in the floor that led to the tomb. Inside, 2 tiny silver amulets rolled like cigarettes, too fragile to unroll for years until the Israel Museum used a reverse rolling technique in 1994. Etched into the silver, the priestly blessing from Numbers chapter 6. Radiocarbon and paleographic dating placed them in the 7th or 6th century BCE, making them the oldest biblical text ever physically recovered, centuries older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. That means at least fragments of the Torah's language existed in near final form before the Babylonian exile most scholars credit with compiling it. The official timeline for when the Bible was written just lost several hundred years of wiggle room. 6. The Great Isaiah Scroll, Qumran Cave 1, 1947, discovered, depending on which shepherd's account you believe, by a Bedouin teenager throwing rocks into a cave looking for a lost goat. What he found instead was a nearly complete book of Isaiah, copied around 125 BCE, making it 1,000 years older than the previous oldest Hebrew Isaiah manuscript. When scholars finally laid it beside the Masoretic text, the ancient rabbinic version still used in Bibles today, it matched with startling precision, but not perfectly. There are variant words, alternate spellings, and a few theologically loaded differences, including phrasing at Isaiah 53, that later Christian readers would seize on. The scroll proves the text was remarkably stable for 1,000 years. It also proves it wasn't identical. Stability and mutation, sitting in the same cave, on the same leather. 5. The Elephantine papyri, Aswan, Egypt, excavated across the early 20th century, with major finds in 1907 by German archaeologist Otto Rubenssohn. These Aramaic papyri come from a Jewish military colony stationed on Elephantine Island in the 5th century BCE, Jewish soldiers garrisoning Egypt's southern border under Persian rule. The documents describe their own functioning temple to Yahweh, complete with animal sacrifice, standing in direct contradiction to the Deuteronomic law, centralizing worship exclusively in Jerusalem. More striking still, one letter references Yahu and his consort Anat Yahu, a goddess paired with the God of Israel. This wasn't a fringe cult. It was a garrisoned, literate, self-governing Jewish community with correspondence to Jerusalem's own priesthood. Monotheism, it turns out, had a rollout period, and Elephantine was still running the beta version. The Tel Dan stele, Northern Israel, 1993 and 1994, excavated by Avraham Biran at Tel Dan. 3 basalt fragments from a 9th century BCE Aramaic victory inscription, likely commissioned by a king of Damascus boasting over defeated enemies. Carved into the stone, the phrase, Beit David, House of David. This is the first and only mention of King David outside the Bible ever recovered from the archaeological record, and it dropped like a bomb on a decades-long academic consensus that David was likely a literary invention, a national myth with no historical footprint. The stele doesn't confirm the shepherd boy, the giant, or the throne of gold and ivory. It confirms a dynasty bore his name and mattered enough for a rival king to brag about beating it. Minimalism took a direct hit that year, but the man behind the myth remained exactly that, a man, not yet a monument. 3. The Gilgamesh Flood Tablet. British Museum, but the discovery credit belongs to George Smith, a self-taught Assyriologist, who in 1872 was translating cuneiform fragments from Nineveh's royal library when he found Tablet 11 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and reportedly became so excited he started tearing off his clothes in the museum reading room. The tablet, dated to the 7th century BCE, but drawing on Sumerian sources 1,000 years older, describes a global flood, a divinely warned survivor named Utnapishtim, a boat, animals loaded aboard, and birds sent out to find land. The parallels to Noah are not subtle, they are structural. This predates the traditional composition window for Genesis by centuries. Either both texts drew from a shared regional flood memory, or one borrowed from the other, and the borrowing didn't flow the direction Sunday school suggests. 2. The Gospel of Thomas. Nag Hammadi, Upper Egypt, 1945. An Egyptian farmer named Muhammad al-Saman, digging for fertilizer, cracked open a sealed jar and found 13 leather-bound codices, buried for roughly 1,600 years. Among them, a complete Coptic text of the Gospel of Thomas, 114 sayings attributed to Jesus, with no narrative, no crucifixion, no resurrection, just teachings, some overlapping with the canonical Gospels, some radically not. Fragments in Greek had surfaced decades earlier at Oxyrhynchus, but Nag Hammadi gave scholars the whole document, and its composition is now widely dated to the 1st or 2nd century, arguably contemporary with, or earlier than, the canonical Gospels reached final form. This wasn't a fringe forgery, it was a serious rival tradition, buried, almost certainly, because it lost a fight. And it wasn't the only casualty in that jar. 1. The Gospel of Judas. Codex Tuchakos, surfaced on the antiquities black market in the 1970s, deteriorated for decades in a safety deposit box and a freezer before the National Geographic Society funded its restoration and translation, announced in 2006 under scholar Rodolphe Kasser. Carbon dating places the papyrus in the 3rd or 4th century, copying a Greek original that Church Father Irenaeus explicitly condemned as heretical around 180 CE, meaning the text is old enough to be exactly what he was angry about. In it, Judas isn't the betrayer. He's the only disciple who understands Jesus, acting on direct instruction to hand him over as part of the plan. This is a first-hand artifact of the very controversy Irenaeus wrote to shut down. Not a later legend about a lost gospel, but the lost gospel itself, still folded in the dark, waiting on the argument it lost. 8 artifacts. 8 lines that don't sit quietly inside the story most of us were handed. Not proof of fraud, proof of process, editing, competition, and centuries of people arguing about what official even meant. The open question none of this settles. When a tradition wins the argument and buries the alternative, does that make the winner true, or just better funded, better organized, and better preserved? Dig through the sources yourself. Then tell us in the comments which one you'd have wanted to defend.